little cosmos were the best and worst of what soccer in America was.
We were really the first big pioneers where big stars came to the United States.
Pele, Giorgio Chinaglia, Franz Beckenbauer, Johan Cruyff, Steve Hunt, Dennis Stewart, Carlos Alberto.
It was my dream that time to go to play for the New York Cosmos.
I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
All of a sudden, in that one summer, summer 1977, Cosmos took over.
When you saw that stadium with 80,000 people, you know, you almost had an orgasm here. Really.
It was a happening, it was an event. It was unprecedented.
The Cosmos were North America's soccer ambassadors to the world.
I think there was a sense that we're all in on something special. The world sport is finally being birthed right here, right in our midst.
Soccer will be the biggest big league of all.
Goal number 3.
We transcended everything. We were international, we were cool, we were everything to everybody.
The world's most popular sport came to its most powerful nation in the same way the United States imported many of its people, through the gates at Ellis Island, imported from almost every corner of the world.
This is somewhat the cradle of New York soccer in the early days. Ethnic communities playing soccer on fields like this in and around New York for decades, really.
Hyphenated Americans, we used to call them back then. German Americans, Greek Americans, but never Americans.
From the melting pot came America's first great soccer team.
In 1950, a free-spirited band of Yanks pulled off one of the most stunning upsets in World Cup history.
The World Cup, the Tournament of Nations held every 4 years since 1930, is the global game's ultimate event. The Americans' second match in 1950 was against mighty England, the country where the modern sport was born.
I was just a teenager at that time, but it was a great shock to wake up in the morning to find that England had been knocked out by the United States. You know, we just couldn't believe it.
The winning goal was headed home by Joe Gaetjens, a Haitian living in New York City who made his living as a dishwasher. On the day he became an American hero, he wasn't even a U.S. citizen. It would be 40 years before the U.S. fielded a World Cup team again.
Americans don't have the attention span that people around the world do for watching a sport that is free-flowing and continuous.
Hot smash. Burleson's going to have a long throw. He makes it. That ends the inning. Bottom of the 7th, 5-3, Cincinnati.
In our sports, there are all these artificial stops and starts, which we use to indulge ourselves in beer and Cracker Jacks and whatever.
Football, baseball, basketball, hockey all have natural breaks. I think that people watching soccer for the first time are wondering what's going on. It's just up and down, up and down.
Our football is a game without stopping, a game where you've got to think for yourself, a game what you do with your feet and not with your hands. I mean, all these things are totally different for the American public.
If you really want to get soccer, you have to concentrate on it for the entire 45 minutes. I have sometimes likened it to a play. If you go to a play in the theater, you're going to pay attention to it until the intermission. Then you take a break and talk about it, and then you go sit back down again and watch the entire second act. Soccer's like that. It's not like the other American sports.
It's about tradition. People in the rest of the world are passionate about soccer. There's no passion in America about soccer.
By the 1960s, there was no passion because there was no soccer.
It was just a country where 99.9% recurring of the population had never heard of it.
There were no youth leagues, no amateur teams, no nothing.
It was an absolute barren country in terms of soccer.
And yet the next great American football club would change the world's game forever.
1, 2, get down!
The phenomenon known as the New York Cosmos would not have happened without the passion of one man.
My father was a big sports fan. He loved watching football. We went to basketball games all the time. We went to hockey games all the time. And I think the idea of developing a sport from basically scratch in the United States really turned him on.
He was a traveling salesman who became the world's first media titan. Long before Ted Turner and Rupert Murdoch, there was Steve Ross, creator of Warner Communications.
Paid the cost to be the boss.
They owned Warner Brothers Studio, which boasted some of the great film stars of the day, Redford, Streisand, Dustin Hoffman. They owned record companies that featured musicians like Dylan and the Rolling Stones, Ray Charles.
See a bad mother.
He started the first true entertainment empire with comic books and ended up igniting the cable television revolution. He also bought an arcade game company and helped create the first name in home computing.
He was a genius. In the financial world, he was really unbelievable. And he was also close to Frank Sinatra, by the way, you know, so it was unbelievable.
He was fantastic. He was not only a big businessman, he was very charming, and he was like a father to us.
He had transformed his father-in-law's funeral parlor and a collection of parking lots into a media empire. For Steve Ross, anything seemed possible, even soccer.
It captivated him. Man owned movie studios, man owned 6 record companies, cable, you know.
Paid the cost to be the boss.
Company doing $4, $5, $6 billion a year, and then he's enamored with going into a locker room.
But for what reason, what purpose was he obsessed with it? What was that all about?
The Big Bang of the cosmos began with a backbeat. And 2 brothers from Istanbul, Ahmet and Neswi Erdogan, are responsible for more classic vinyl than Elvis and the Beatles put together. Ahmet founded Atlantic Records in 1947. Warner Communications bought Atlantic 20 years later, and the Erdogans went to work for Steve Ross.
Here we were 2 New York businessmen who had this love of soccer. My brother decided to leave Atlantic Records. And Steve Ross said, if you stay, I'll do anything that you'd like. So my brother said to Steve Ross, said, listen, what I really would like is a professional soccer football team.
Neswi Erdogan came to me and Steve, actually, and said, you know, soccer is going to be the biggest sport. It is the biggest sport in the world, and clearly it's going to overtake America.
Television viewers in the U.S. had gotten their first taste of world football's potential in 1966. They saw almost 100,000 fans pack Wembley Stadium for the final between England and West Germany, as the BBC broadcast was carried live in America. In one of the most thrilling matches ever played, a young Franz Beckenbauer and his teammates could not stop England's Geoff Hurst.
It's a goal! Some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now.
In the UK alone, more than 32 million viewers tuned into the extra time thriller. Still the biggest audience in BBC history.
You can't have a professional league without having investors convinced, and I think the showing of the World Cup in 1966 was the turning point. That convinced them that it could happen in this country.
The American game of the same name was flourishing, with the birth of the Super Bowl and the first network television contracts.
The American Football League franchises had become, over the years, sometimes quite quickly, worth millions and millions of dollars. And soccer, the franchises were very cheap. So you had the opportunity, the possibility of getting in on something on the ground floor.
Emboldened by the BBC's success in '66, American investors backed not one, but two professional American soccer leagues.
Trying to find an American who could play soccer, American-born who could play soccer, it just wasn't there.
By 1968, the two leagues had collapsed into one, the North American Soccer League, featuring 5 largely failing franchises.
We knew that if the league was going to be a success, if we're going to get the media and sponsorship and television attention, that we had to have a successful New York franchise.
The stars would align for the NASL just south of the border in Mexico City at the 1970 World Cup.
Nestle and I gave a big party at the World Cup. We invited Pele and all of them came to our party.
I just happened to gate crash into a party, and a gentleman there introduced himself. He said, "Come on in. My name is Nestle Erdogan." So right then, that night, I met his brother as well, Amit, and we arranged to meet in New York later.
Nestle and Amit returned to Manhattan and held Steve Ross to his promise.
Steve and I called 8 other executives and got them to put in $35,000 each. I did it, Steve did it.
So I mean, what's $1 million between friends?
They hired Clive Toye as general manager before most of them had ever seen a game.
Nestle said, "I'm going to take you to St. Louis, the hotbed of soccer. I mean, this is where soccer is really big." We got there, and 340 people were in the stands. I counted them, 340 people. We watched the game, and it was, you know, I never knew what a header was. I thought giving great head was something else. And I looked at Steve. I said, "We love Nestle, we love Amit, but this is going to be a disaster."
The league was nothing to talk about. I mean, it was really semi-professional, and we had a ragtag team.
They started recruiting players. All they needed was a name.
The previous New York professional club had been the Mets, New York Mets, and Mets is short for Metropolitan. So I thought, well, what's bigger than Metropolitan? And came up with Cosmopolitan, and suddenly it clicked, Cosmos. That's how the Cosmos became the Cosmos.
Toye's first hire was an English player-coach named Gordon Bradley.
Clive and I, he was in the office, and he was doing his planning and his planning. I was out in the fields, coaching.
My name is Gordon Bradley, and I'm a professional soccer player. A lot of you will probably not have heard of this game or seen this game played before, but I think it's just about the greatest game in the world.
In the early years, Bradley and Toye built the team with players mainly from New York's amateur leagues.
The league was called the North American Soccer League, a professional league. But in essence, it was a semi-pro league.
We didn't make a whole lot of money. We practiced twice a week. We all worked for a living. I worked for an architectural firm.
I was working as a teacher at a high school in an all-black neighborhood and then playing for the Cosmos on the side. I'll never forget the first contract I signed. You know, I was so proud. I thought I needed an agent. How do I negotiate? And then the coach at the time, Gordon Bradley, said, I'll offer you $2,100 for the season. I said, well, what would you say if I said no? He said, I couldn't care less. So I said, okay, yeah, I'll sign.
I worked at Warner Brothers Jungle Habitat, which was it was a safari up in West Milford, New Jersey.
Randy Horton was the Cosmos' first leading scorer. A chimp named Harold from his day job was the team's first mascot. Horton's boss at the Wild Animal Park, an architect from Havana, Cuba, named Rafael de la Sierra, became the Cosmos' first vice president.
I remember a friend of mine asking me if I knew how many people play on each side, and I have no idea. You know, it was 10 or 9 or, yeah, I don't know, but there were a bunch of guys, you know. I mean, it was really a disgrace of a team in many ways.
When we started with the Cosmos, it was a small ethnic crowd. Nobody knew who we were, and we just played because we loved the game. We loved the game of soccer.
They played their first game at Yankee Stadium, but soon moved 25 miles east of the city to Hofstra University on Long Island.
There were maybe 50 people in the stands, and it was mostly the family of the players. We were thinking of, you know, how can we possibly draw anything to see this game, you know?
We'd give away T-shirts, balls, keychains, and they would have me call radio stations of 2 listeners. And I felt like Jimmy Swaggart or Billy Graham at the time, you know, to spread the word.
Listen to me, legislator.
It was almost an impossible situation, you know? We tried everything, and it didn't really work.
In 1972, the Cosmos won the league championship. Not that anyone noticed. But by then, the ragtag team had hooked the only fan that mattered.
We're sitting out in the stands in the pouring rain with, you know, 50 to 100 people watching the game. You know, my father's running down on the sidelines giving the players towels to wash off. You know, this is, you know, that's who he was. He did anything he did like with a great deal of gusto.
It was all of the dreams that he had of owning a major league sports team and tried to believe that this was a major league sports team when indeed it wasn't. I went to Steve and I said, Steve, clearly this is something that Warner should take, not us, because we're, you know, this is going to lose quite a bit of money.
The 10 original investors sold their stake in the Cosmos to Warner Communications for $1. Ross put his empire behind the idea of American soccer.
When it first was released that Warner Communications was buying the soccer team, I don't think anybody really took it seriously.
Sports editors treated soccer as if it was a leper colony.
They wouldn't give us the time of day in the early days, so I used to buy them subscriptions to soccer magazines so I knew how to spell the word soccer.
The only magazine willing to publish a feature on the Cosmos barely mentioned the sport.
A friend of mine asked me whether I wanted to pose nude in a magazine. And I said, dude, you're crazy. He said, no, they pay good money. They pay $5,000 and they're looking for an athlete, a professional athlete in New York. I thought it'd be semi-nude. I thought it'd be a towel or dim lighting or artistic picture. Needless to say, when the magazine hit the newsstand, there was nothing subtle about it. There I was, naked, frontal. It was wild. Man, I didn't think anybody would see it, but the Cosmos saw it. Clive went nuts. I mean, there was no morals clause in the contract, but he said it was disgraceful. I'm a professional athlete. We're trying to be role models. We're trying to sell the sport. We're trying to... I said, Clive, wait, you told me our biggest challenge is to get exposure. I got you more exposure in one centerfold than you've gotten all year.
In 1974, Ross moved the team closer to the city in an effort to attract more fans. The only available venue was Downey Stadium on Randall's Island, just below the Triborough Bridge, connecting the Bronx and Queens with Manhattan.
You know, it's Randall's Island, a prison, and some guy selling hot dogs. That's all. And the field was like broken bottles and dirt, but we thought that was a step up.
I remember having great difficulty getting out of my bed on game days. You know, really not wanting to go to Randall's Island.
It was not the type of place that you'd play on purpose.
It's Randall's Island where you played all your home games. You might not like the ground, but they like it 50% worse than what you do, or 100% worse. You can do it, but it's up to you.
Randall's Island was quite appropriate, actually, I think, for some of the players we had playing at the time.
The team's fourth season would be its worst yet. 14 losses in 20 games.
We were getting absolutely nowhere. Nowhere. It was hopeless.
Steve Ross would need more than just a game to transform the Cosmos into a major league attraction.
New York, we talk about Joe DiMaggio, and we talk about Babe Ruth, and we talk about Mickey Mantle, and we talk about Joe Namath. And we said, you know, what we really need in this team is a big name player. Clive said to me, well, why don't we talk to this guy, Pelé? I said, well, who's Pelé? I have no idea.
Pelé was Pelé. There was no better player, more spectacular and more famous player in the history of the game than Pelé.
As a boy growing up in the slums of Brazil, he saw his father weep after their country's loss in the 1950 World Cup final. Pelé vowed to win one for his father. 8 years later, at age 17, he became the youngest man ever to win a World Cup winner's medal, leading Brazil to victory. The first of a record 3 World Cup championships.
There was only one player in the world who could break through this crust here of, you know, just antipathy more than just indifference, and that was Pelé.
In October 1974, he announced his retirement from his lifelong club, Santos.
Clive came to us one day and said, you know, I think there's a chance of getting Pelé.
Well, that's not quite true. It was my brother who told Steve Ross that we should sign Pelé.
That is the biggest load of nonsense I've heard today. Maybe this week, maybe this year. The idea of signing Pelé was either Phil Woosnam's or mine.
The first approach to Pelé was done in 1970.
Long before anyone at Warner, including Ahmed and Neswi and Steve Ross and everybody else, had ever heard of soccer.
Steve Ross asked Neswi, who is the greatest player? And Neswi said, the greatest player is Pelé.
I got to just tell you that, and I'm going to stop for a minute by saying, you don't have to stop the camera, but this is going to be like a Rashomon. Everybody's going to have a different view of everything. You understand that.
Toye and Woosnam had in fact approached Pelé about coming to America just 1 month after the Cosmos was formed. Toye even insisted the team's colors be yellow, the same as Brazil.
The name, the Cosmos, the city, New York, my face, my name,
had been registered, you might say.
In 1971, Toy could only dream of signing a World Cup legend. By 74, he worked for a dream maker and a risk taker.
People around him would say, you know, you can't get there. And he'd say, I don't want to hear about can't. Who is it? Let's try.
When Steve Ross looked at Pelé, he didn't just see the world's greatest soccer player. He saw a global brand. He saw Pelé soccer shoes, Pelé jerseys, even Pelé cologne that Warner's could license to every soccer-playing country in the world. And he also saw something else. He saw television.
He saw a path to what had been promised. Soccer as America's new big league sport.
What's it going to cost? I mean, that's always the first question.
That's very much the American mentality. If we can't create it, we can assume it, because at the end of the day, it's all about money.
Nestle, myself, and Pele, Raphael, and I guess Clive met in the seaside resort with a fellow by the name of Shisto, who was Pele had 32 advisors.
We played soccer with Pele on the beach. Can you imagine?
That'll be on my headstone. JM, and he played soccer with Pele.
And by then, Real Madrid and Juventus had started sniffing around. And so I had come up with, if you go to Real or Juventus, all you can win is another championship, whereas if you come with us, you can win a country.
He loved the lure of that. He was going to open a new frontier, and that was America, the great challenge of America.
I called that night, I called Steve Ross, and I said, you know what? I think this guy's going to play for us. And he couldn't believe it. You know, he could not believe it.
I was negotiating the agreement with Dustin Hoffman for the film called All the President's Men. And then I got a call to see Steve and Jay in their office. And they said, Norman, we want you to go to Brazil and sign a soccer player by the name of Pelé. And I said, okay. I was greeted by a number of paparazzi and other photographers.
People idolized Pelé, as they did all over the world, I suspect. But in Brazil, he was clearly a national treasure, and they didn't want to let him go.
Ross was ready to risk $2 million for 3 years of play. Pelé wanted $5 million for 2 years.
Quite a difference.
There was no way we were going to spend that kind of money, so we called Jay.
They called me at about 2 in the morning, saying, you know, you've got to change the deal a little. I said, hey, listen, Norman, you know what to do. Do what you have to do. We got to get him. We want him, you know, no matter pretty much what it costs.
And he said, I have one more thing to tell you. I said, what's that, Jay? And he hung up on us.
And then I took the phone off the hook, because I knew there'd be 6 other calls.
All right, so basically it was up to us.
And we proposed a 5-part deal, 5 contracts.
3 years for playing, 10 years of worldwide marketing rights, a 14-year PR contract, a music contract. The total package was, we owned him lock, stock, and barrel.
Has anybody ever mentioned the amount of money we paid Pelé?
Not a lot of money.
Pelé was paid $4.5 million.
$3 million for 2 years.
$5 million.
Altogether, $2.7 million.
The highest paid player in baseball became the home run king that year. Henry Hank Aaron was making $200,000 a season.
What Warner's came to him with was like the apple in the Garden of Eden. It would have been a very, very strong and strange individual who would turn that down.
Pelé okayed the deal. His country did not. Citing his status as a national treasure, the president of Brazil demanded he play 1 more year for his country rather than go to America. Pelé turned to his suitors for help. Warner Communications headquarters, 75 Rockefeller Center, New York.
Nelson Rockefeller was the vice president of the United States.
My father worked for Nelson Rockefeller, and they asked my dad if he would ask him maybe put in a good word to the Brazilian government, and wouldn't this be a great thing for both countries to have Pelé come here.
Like 3 or 4 days later, Nelson called back and says he has no idea who Pelé is. He couldn't care less if he comes and play here or not, but that there is a guy in the cabinet, and he thought that would be a fantastic idea, and his name is Henry Kissinger.
In my dealings with both the Brazilian government, I tried to convince them that having Pelé play in the United States was a tremendous asset for Brazil.
Pelé got a phone call from the Secretary of State of Brazil, begging him to please sign the contract with the Cosmos for the good of the relationship of Brazil and the United States. Well, when Pelé received that call, he said, my God, you guys can do anything, you know, I'm going with you, no matter what.
Steve Ross announced the signing at the legendary 21 Club in Manhattan.
The Cosmos held their press conference there in a room aptly named the Hunt Room, as if Pelé was the prize catch.
The press corps got there 3-4 hours before the press conference and nailed their cameras, TV cameras, into the floor. And these were all the people who would never cover the Cosmos, who would never show up or respond to anything. And the sign said capacity 143 people.
There must have been 300 reporters from all over the world.
Cameras right in front, please move back.
And Pelé, was on Pelé time, which means that he was 2 hours late.
Steve and Jay were waiting for us. Where the hell is he? Where the hell is he? He's coming, he's coming.
And on my immediate left, Stephen J. Ross, Chairman of the Board and President of Warner Communications. And now at the door, the legend, the great one, the King, Pelé.
When Pelé finally came out, the rush of people to come up and meet him was, unbelievable. I had never seen such a thing.
Will you please behave yourself?
So all the reporters turned into fans. We finally calmed the press corps down. One person was heckling us from the back, and we were looking behind the lights, and it's Dick Young up on a platform talking about the denigration of professional baseball, how soccer would ruin the sport of baseball. He was just heckling the entire time. Soccer's for foreigners, shouldn't be played in America, everything negative.
Dick Young was a crusty, conservative man who believed that if you didn't love everything about America, you should get the hell out. Young was probably the best read sports writer in the United States and held a considerable amount of power. To him, the only story was that Warner's was shelling out this, obscene amount of cash for somebody he never heard of.
O soccer chegou nos Estados Unidos. Pode espalhar por aí.
You can spread out the news to all the world that the soccer arrived finally in USA.
Within 10 seconds, the time it took Pelé to sign his contracts, it all changed.
Finally this evening, something about an extraordinary man from Brazil who's been
soccer superstar Pelé.
Today in New York City, Pelé, the greatest soccer player who ever lived.
Everywhere in the world, people knew that there was a Cosmos soccer team in New York and that Pelé played on it.
Fly, fly, touch the sky. What you gonna do now? There's no one.
We're down to practice at Randall's Island, trying to avoid the broken glass on the field and cuts on our legs. And then all of a sudden, we see a guy coming on the field and he's spray painting the dirt.
We had to take spray paint and paint the mud because there was so little grass.
We're going, this dude is nuts. I don't know what he's doing. And then we see a helicopter flying over.
The image was irresistible, that this was the beginning of a Greek piece of theatre, if you like. That Pelé was stepping in here to save this league from being trite and ordinary, that he was going to move it into the realm of a big-time league.
The Cosmos were already 9 games into the '75 season and last in their division with just 3 wins. Nevertheless, CBS agreed to broadcast Pelé's American debut.
Pelé is the most famous player in the history of soccer, and today, at the age of 34, he began a new career, playing for the New York Cosmos in the North American Soccer League.
The first game that Pelé played here on a Sunday afternoon against Dallas, the place was filled, absolutely filled.
What brings you out today, sir? Curiosity. The guy's worth $4 million. I got to see him. I've never seen a soccer game in my life.
We could have gotten in 2 or 3 times as many. It was a huge, huge game.
Pelé's magic drew the largest crowd in the history of the Cosmos.
Mr. Ross calling up, how many have we sold? How many have we sold?
I came to see Pelé because I compare him as a Muhammad Ali in soccer game. 1 minute the play's dead, and the next minute the whole place is alive.
Yes, it's you, yes, it's you. He doesn't know what the field is like. It could be anything. It could be up and down, in and out, all around. But he played in it. He could have said, I'm not playing on that field. He didn't. He played 90 minutes. Enough said.
When the cameras pointed to the field, it was green, it was beautiful.
Yes, yes, it's you.
The world's greatest player did not disappoint, rescuing his new team in dramatic fashion.
With the Cosmos trailing by 2, his perfect pass made a goal for Mordecai Spiegel. And then he soared above the Dallas defenders to head home, powerfully, unstoppably, the equalizing goal.
When the game was over, Pelé was in the shower. The locker room was packed with reporters. He gestured me from the shower. He goes, psst, psst, psst. So I go to him, and he says, Rafael, this is the first and the last game I play here. How can you say this to me? I mean, you know, don't you see it's a big success? How can you possibly say that to me? He says, you know, the most important thing in my life is my feet. And look at my feet. I have a fungus that I have contacted here. I'm not playing with you anymore. I said, Pelé, this is green paint. That we painted the field green. He could not believe it.
His first season would be the Cosmos' last on Randall's Island.
I had to get Pelé in the stadium, which he could play in, he should play in, the stadium, Giant Stadium.
Less than 7 miles from Times Square, construction in East Rutherford, New Jersey had been underway since 1972. Giant Stadium, with more than 75,000 seats, was scheduled to open for American football in the fall of 1975. Ross was banking that by then, America would be ready for professional soccer. But in the summer of '75, Pelé could hardly save his team, much less his sport.
He thought we were passing him the ball too often. And I think that was, limitation on our part, thinking that as long as we got the ball to Pelé, he would take care of the rest of it.
It was hard to not be in awe every day. And you would think you do something every day, you get very used to it. But every day, there's Pelé on a field. I mean, come on, it's Pelé. I'm learning so much just by being around the guy, and how he plays.
The biggest challenge for us on the field was not stopping and watching him play, because he still had these incredible moves.
Every place we went, and we're straggling along, there's Pelé, we're just like, we're with him.
I don't think any one of us ever felt entitled. We were honored. We knew we were experiencing something that I always said that there could have been 100 goalkeepers as good as me, and I'm sure Smitty said.
I had a hard time as well thinking I belonged there.
He was a superstar in a strange land, but he knew his role.
I come to play in America because I believe in soccer in America. The kids here love the sport. The American people sport naturally. I come to play here because I know in a few years we'll have a good team in America.
I think his challenge was really figuring out how best to fit in to a team of journeymen that, were trying their best.
He talked to me a couple of times, try to play like you're playing a game of chess, be 2 moves ahead of the ball or something, or the play.
He would finish the season with 5 goals and 4 assists, leading his new team to 7 wins in 9 games. And although the Cosmos missed the playoffs, Pelé had done his job.
Set him up, Joe. Get it.
We look at things in the world of the Cosmos as before Pelé and after Pelé.
His mere presence shattered attendance records in Boston, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C.
When I would go visit my grandmother in Washington, you're hoping that when you were there that the Dips were playing the Cosmos, so you could see Pelé.
After he pulled a hamstring late in the season, more than 20,000 fans in Philadelphia came out just to see him in street clothes.
Now that the world's most famous athlete was in New York City, the media could no longer ignore the sport.
Pelé went to the White House, where President Ford found a soccer ball a lot more elusive than a football.
Maybe I could do it better with my hand than my foot.
And while most of the press was positive, there remained one powerful skeptic.
Dick Young said, you know what, I want to meet Pelé, and I want to meet him one-on-one, and let's go to a baseball game in my environment.
They attended a Mets game late in the season at Shea Stadium.
We are not announced. No one knows we're at the game. End of the first inning, we start getting a cluster of people around us. By the 3rd inning, we were absolutely besieged by people. We couldn't control the fans. The umpire had to call play, and we're escorted onto the field because the security couldn't control the stadium anymore. It was absolute pandemonium. Dick Young he's almost crying, weeping openly. His heart is breaking that his baseball fans recognize Pelé, who he had come to take down. And if he was really a reporter, he had only one recourse, and that is write the truth. This game was truly a spectator sport and truly global.
By the bicentennial year of 1976, foreign football was encroaching even further on the American pastime. The Cosmos moved into Yankee Stadium. Pelé, playing just half the season in '75, had tripled their average attendance.
Pelé brought instant credibility to the NASL. Because of him, other stars came over here, from Gordon Banks to Rodney Marsh to Jeff Hurst. Even George Best touched down in Los Angeles, because every other franchise thought, well, if the Cosmos can do it, we can.
On arrival into Tampa, one of the questions the American journalists asked me was, you've been described as the White Pelé. And I said, that's not quite true. Pelé is the Black Rodney Marsh. And that didn't seem to go down too well.
For Steve Ross, the world's greatest player was not enough.
New York likes winners. You could have God himself as a striker for the Cosmos. If you lost, nobody cares.
I've scored, I think, in 220 league games, 253 goals, so that's who I was. So I was the man to put the ball in the back of the net.
Giorgio Canaglia was the leading scorer of the Italian club Lazio in 1975.
I was the highest paid player in Italy, and therefore it was a bit unhealthy.
When I first met him in Rome, I was in his car and he had a gun in the glove compartment. Oh, you know, I said, what the hell am I doing here?
He thrust himself upon us. His time in Italy was running out. He was been thrown off the national team. I mean, it was the easiest signing of a named player that anyone could ever have.
My first wife was American, like my second wife is American. Therefore, I said, let's go to America.
Talks a lot, and half of it's not worth listening to. The other half I wouldn't listen to either, so where you got him?
Giorgio Canaglia is Italian, speaks English with a Welsh accent, scored a lot of goals, and those are about the only positive things I can think to say about him.
Very disagreeable fellow at times.
He was a backstabbing individual.
They probably can't stand me. I don't give a shit. Why don't these people just judge me for what I did on the field? That would be a nice thing, wouldn't it?
Steve Ross brought in 5 new players that year, 3 from overseas, none more prolific than Giorgio Canaglia.
Yeah, I was demanding on the field, yeah, but at the end of the day, there is nobody that's scored more goals in the history of North American soccer than myself.
Giorgio was extremely passionate about soccer, and I think he found a like-minded individual in my father.
Pele was his prize catch, but Giorgio became his confidant.
Let me tell you, Giorgio and Steve Ross had a very strange relationship. I don't know what it was, but he did have, Steve Ross, he had his ear.
That's absolutely the truth. I mean, Giorgio had won a soft spot in the heart of Steve Ross.
I remember Ross wearing a pair of Cosmo sweatpants with the number 9 on it, Canaglia's number. He was wearing Canaglia's pants. That was sort of a metaphor for their relationship.
Giorgio was the opposite of a Pele. Giorgio wore his emotions on his sleeve, dynamic, big, good-looking, long hair, an idol like a movie star in Italy.
When you walk down the street with Giorgio, it was like walking down the street in the heyday of Joe DiMaggio or Mickey Mantle.
Pele reached the whole world and got New York's attention. Giorgio put it over the top because people wanted to come to boo him or cheer him or yell at him or throw things at him. And that's the kind of passion you expect in New York.
He scored 19 goals in 19 games, while Pele led the league in assists. Together, they took the Cosmos, kicking and screaming, into the playoffs.
Giorgio was a little jealous of Pele. He wanted to be Pele.
I just wanted to score goals. I didn't care who played beside me, really. I never did. That's why sometimes I wasn't liked. But I don't care about that either.
He's the only professional player I've ever heard in my life who would make criticisms of Pele.
Off the field, he was all right. He's, you know, a very quiet person, a lovable person. On the field, I had some problems with him, yeah.
There was a memorable episode in the Cosmos locker room when Canaglia said that he was disgusted that Pele wasn't giving him the service that he needed to score goals. Pele, you can imagine, is not used to teammates criticizing him, fired right back and said, "You shoot from no fucking angle." And Canaglia jumped off his stool and shouted, "I am Canaglia. If I shoot from some place, it's because Canaglia can score from that place." And Pele was near tears, shook his head and walked out of the locker room.
I didn't want him to do bad. I wanted him to do well. But he kept coming inside next to me, and I said, you know, listen, one guy's going to mark the two of us. So try to stay wide because you'll be more effective and you'll score goals.
All great goal scorers have an ego. Give me the ball. Why are you giving it to Pele? Give it to me. He wants the ball. He wants to score.
Listen, my friend, if you don't have egos in life, especially in the sports, you're not going to go very far.
The two huge personalities did have one thing in common.
Giorgio had his locker room with his blue velvet robe and his Chivas Regal, pack of cigarettes, sunglasses. He had it all.
The women went wild. They just went wild.
I remember one night, there was Pelé with a blonde on each arm. He looked at me and he smiled and said, "Not for the book, my friend."
He'd sit in the lobby in every town, often by himself, doing the old winky, like he was on the cruise.
Their shared passion for life may have cost them a shot at the championship. In the second round of the 1976 playoffs, the heavily favored Cosmos faced the Tampa Bay Rowdies and Rodney Marsh.
We knew them and we knew about the Cosmos team and we knew the personnel. So we had a limo that met them off the plane with two girls in the limo and 2 bottles of Chivas Regal. And 24 hours later, at the game, they both came out onto the pitch looking very much the worse for wear.
Tampa Bay won the match 3-1.
Steve Ross was not happy.
He didn't like to lose games, no, he didn't like to lose in anything. He didn't like to lose in board games. So, yeah, a soccer game, no, he hated to lose a soccer game. In championship games, he didn't want to lose one of those.
Immediately following the loss in '76, Ross took his team where it could be truly appreciated.
We went on tour playing all over Europe, France, and in Belgium, and Switzerland, and in Italy.
They went on 2 exhibition tours in the span of 7 months.
We became like the ambassadors of goodwill.
Steve Ross wanted them to be treated like great stars.
We travel first class, 5-star hotels, unlimited budgets, no such thing as per diem.
They weren't spending their money, they were spending shareholders' money.
The publicity that we generated for Warner was enormous. Publicity that they couldn't buy.
One little stockholder said to us, Mr. Ross, at the annual meeting, what does this cost? Do you lose money? He says, well, we lose some money. Well, how much do you lose? And he looked at her straight in the eye and said, 2 cents a share. And the whole audience applauded. What a wonderful venture this is. Not recognizing that 2 cents a share was $5 million.
In 10 years, American soccer had developed into a different game than world football. The league had tailored the rules for American fans.
There had to be a winner. If it ended 2-2, you went into a mini-game after that. And if it stayed at 2-2 or even became 3-3, you had to go to what was called the North American Soccer League shootout, going one-on-one with the goalkeeper from 35 yards out, dribbling in and having 5 seconds to get your shot off. And I loved it.
I thought it was fantastic.
It makes the game more emotional.
I still think in Europe they should try it.
In the spring of '77, Steve Ross was at last able to move the Cosmos across the Hudson River to Giant Stadium for Pelé's final season. While the league had Americanized the game, Steve Ross wanted to take it a step further.
He asked me to prepare a plan, which included the Cosmos cheerleaders, the halftime show, Bugs Bunny, who I was able to get from Jungle Habitat, Americanizing the game.
Americans like putting their kind of own twist and flavor to things, and I think that that's what they were trying to do, to basically have more of the American fans kind of come in and embrace it.
At the same time, he continued internationalizing his team, surrounding Pelé and Canalla with 14 new players from 7 different countries.
We were the first team that had a totally international squad.
It was like Noah's Ark, okay? There was something to please everybody.
Nevertheless, they lost 3 of their first 5 games, averaging little more than 20,000 fans in their new giant home.
Here we're putting up, a lot of money on the field, and we were not drawing. So he wanted to make a change, raise the bar.
They sent me to Germany. They sent me to sign Franz Beckenbauer.
Turned back by Jeff Hurst in England in the classic World Cup final of 1966, the Kaiser would lead his country to glory 8 years later.
Talk about someone who was the ultimate team leader, the one that organized in the back and was just so calm and collective on the ball. You never got the sense that he was in any sort of state of panic, regardless of whether he was up by 4 goals or down by 4 goals.
Twice voted European Player of the Year, Franz Beckenbauer was lured to America at the height of his career.
I knew Pele was there, Giorgio Ginalia was there, but the rest I didn't know. So it was an adventure.
Giorgio was berserk. Why do we need to hire Beckenbauer? Why do we need Beckenbauer here? We don't need him at all. Now, he was the third banana.
Beckenbauer's first game was a 4-2 loss to arch-rival Tampa Bay. The following week, they beat Toronto at home in front of 31,000 fans. Steve Ross wanted more.
Steve was what you would call a star.
Every time, somebody was in New York shooting a film or doing an album or whatever, they got dragged to a Cosmos game.
Warner Communication. You own a movie company, you own 6 record companies, cable. I think you can get celebrities. I think that's pretty easy.
Actors, actresses, politicians, you name it, we had them all at the stadium.
I don't know who they were. The bloody locker room was littered with people. It was becoming a joke.
Henry Kissinger never missed a game.
I have a passion for what we call soccer.
I remember once Gordon Bradley looked over in the corner and saw this guy with longish hair, skinny as a rail, looked like he was on drugs. He told our security guy, "Get that guy out of here."
Who is this guy? Everybody came going and said, Mick Jagger. He didn't recognize him because he looked so terrible.
Jagger and Kissinger were welcomed on a weekly basis, while the first 2 men on the Cosmos team were quietly shown the door.
I came May 77. After 3 weeks, Clive Toy, the president, he resigned. Gordon Bradley, the coach, he was fired. I said to myself, oh my God, where am I?
Just weeks before he was fired, Bradley had dropped Canaglia from the first team.
They didn't like me. I'm sure they didn't like me. So there's only one way that we can get rid of this guy, probably drop him. But they have little minds. They thought then I would ask for a transfer or something. Forgetting that some people push the buttons.
On Giorgio's recommendation, Ross hired coach Eddie Firmani away from Tampa Bay.
He brought in his guy, Eddie Firmani, to coach the team, knowing that Eddie would do his bidding.
Just put the balls in front of Giorgio, because Giorgio, when he goes, he wants the ball in front of him, not behind him.
And he flowered under Eddie, and he scored a bushel full of goals.
You knock all those beautiful balls just in front of him, put all the balls in there so they go straight in goal. That's right. Oh, yeah.
It is unquestionable that Giorgio Canaglia had a malign influence over Steve Ross and therefore over the Cosmos. No question about that. I say malign advisedly. I could think of stronger words, but maybe women and children watching this.
You see, what they don't understand, people don't understand, if you do your job good, I'm going to give you a lot of credit. I have my credit on the field. What the hell do I need anything else? My goal just was to have the best team in the world, and it was good for the company. That was my goal. Nothing else.
the lunatics took over the asylum.
He was always pleasant to me, you know, he's a suck-up guy. Pele, when he scored a goal, never looked at us. Bobby Smith, when he scored a goal, never looked at us. But every time that Giorgio scored a goal, he would run back in front of Steve and bow down and suck up to Steve.
By the last week of June 1977, Canaglia had 8 goals and the team had 10 wins. They avenged 2 straight losses to the Rowdies in front of more than 62,000 fans.
Pele scored a hat-trick. When I look at games that I played in America, that would definitely be top of the heap.
Then, they dropped 5 of their next 7 games.
See, for us, said, no, now we have Pele, we have Beckenbauer, we have Canaglia. But the rest, you need more.
So I went back to Sao Paulo.
In my opinion, the most important signing from a team point of view was Carlos Alberto.
As captain of the Brazilian national team, he had helped Pele win his 3rd World Cup title in 1970. With only 4 games remaining in the 77 season, Carlos Alberto came to America to help his old teammate win one last championship.
It's unforgettable. The day I arrived in New York, it was the day of the blackout.
At 9:34 last night, it all went black.
Dark streets was a wild outburst of crime.
A night of no lights, elevators, subway trains, airports, air conditioning, traffic signals, television.
Arson, looting, mugging, and 1,000 false fire alarms.
In the darkness, July 13th, it seemed as if the world was turning upside down.
We had the criminal son of Sam, who was a serial murderer. Riots in a blackout. Major problem was the bankruptcy of the city of New York. It was really quite a year.
When the power returned, the lights came up on soccer in America.
Soccer, and it's fast becoming as popular here as it's been in the rest of the world.
It was like an explosion.
I mean, it was a whirlwind. It was like a meteor taking off. One day we were nobody, and the next day we're playing at Giant Stadium, and limos picking us up to take us right to Studio 54 after the game.
We had a table there, you know, a big table. It was reserved for the cosmos, not only for the players, also for, you know, for the bosses.
The doorman looked me up and down and gave me a hard time until I uttered the 4 magic words, "I'm with the cosmos."
I remember people making out up there, in full view of you, celebrities walking in and out.
Every Monday night, they had a party at the Studio 54. This was a part of the development of football also in the United States, soccer in the United States.
Everybody was invited to the party.
I was the first one out on the field every game, and you felt it. You walked out there, and all of a sudden, one by one, I'd stand there as these giants of soccer, these international stars, bigger-than-life players. They were coming out of this tunnel like gladiators coming out to do battle.
August 14th, 4 days after police arrested David Berkowitz, the self-proclaimed son of Sam, the New York Cosmos sold out one of the biggest football stadiums in the world.
It was a playoff game against Fort Lauderdale. The first time in the history sold out. The Giant Stadium was sold out with 77,000 and something else.
Soccer is a game that everybody's involved with.
Takes stamina, speed, strength.
The excitement and something going on all the time.
I think it'll be right up there with baseball as a national pastime.
Soccer is not only here to stay, but will be perhaps in the ultimate, the biggest big league of all.
It was just unexpected, unbelievable glory.
Basking in the glory high above the masses sat the king of American soccer, Steve Ross.
He would sit on the second level of Giant Stadium, which is fairly high up because he thought he could see the action better. He could see the whole field and what was going on.
And we had to put chains on him because from the mezzanine at Giant Stadium, he was always arguing with the referee and everybody was afraid he was going to go fly down.
Lack of a sellout crowd of 76,000 last night at Giant Stadium. The Cosmos, the new darlings in town, beat Rochester 4-1 to make their way to the final, the Soccer Bowl in Portland, which will be seen here on Channel 4 on Sunday starting at 4.
Ross watched his one-time ragtag team become champion.
What I remember most about the championship game in 1977 was how excited the players were because they wanted to win a championship for Pelé.
We all felt responsible. It was Pelé's last game competitive. You know, we wanted to do it for him.
It is Pelé's final year, and we'd like him to leave the way he deserves to leave as a champion.
That was not marketing, that was not PR, that was genuine, and it was very touching.
It just fell into place on the day, for me personally. Scored what's probably put down as one of the most memorable goals in soccer ball history.
But the game winner in the 81st minute belonged to Pelé's locker room rival, Canaglia.
He had a pretty good year. He went away, winning note. He won the championship. More than that, we can't do.
Since 3 years, I think this today was one of my best games.
Win the World Cup, there were 11 Germans on the field. You win the European Cup, there was 9 Germans and 2 foreigners. With the New York Cosmos, we had 14 different nations. So it was like a family. You know, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was really an experience. I will never forget this.
This was an incredibly fun few years in my father's life. It was a big joy for him, and Jay's life, and Pelé's life, and Giorgio's life. I mean, these guys were having a blast. You know, Warner Communication was in its prime, and my father was in his prime, and it was huge amounts of fun. There was nothing that wasn't fun.
Pelé left the league with a parting gift, hope for the future. As he stepped aside, ABC Sports began negotiating to broadcast NASL regular season games on network television.
Steve believed that television was the key to the Cosmos or soccer's success.
No professional sport in the United States makes it without a television contract.
Right now, we're at Giants Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
By 1978, the Cosmos were giving network executives every reason to believe that American soccer had a lucrative future.
But already it's been filled to its capacity of more than 77,000 several times for another sport, for soccer.
Every game was like a party. Even in Brazil, you don't play every game with the stadium full.
People would be arriving 3-4 hours before kickoff with their tailgates up at the back, facing each other, and barbecues going, flags waving. Great atmosphere outside the ground long before we started the game.
Steve Ross signed a whole new slate of international stars for the 1978 season. They won their first 7 games and 15 out of 17.
The team got more and more stabilized. The team got better and better.
But the competition had also been diluted due to expansion. In '78, the NASL added 6 more teams for a league high of 24, all of them chasing Steve Ross and the Cosmos.
It was a negative impact because you had people owning the teams that couldn't afford it. You had players that should not have been playing a professional sport, playing professional soccer, and the quality itself wasn't what it was.
We had no business being in San Antonio, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida, Memphis, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Hawaii, Calgary, Edmonton.
All became stops on the Cosmos traveling circus.
It was like traveling with the Rolling Stones. I mean, it was big.
The whole thing was lightning in a bottle. It was a huge, huge aphrodisiac. And it wasn't even behind closed doors. On the flight out to the Cosmos Championship game in 1977, there were 2 sex acts performed. Right on the plane, headed for the championship game.
My sports editor, I was 26, 27 years old. He said, how'd you like to cover the Yankees? You know, the most coveted beat in this country. I looked at him and said, no, thank you. I'll stick here with the Cosmos. I'm having too good a time, just too good a time.
The Cosmos entourage included a huge press contingent, translators for more than a dozen languages, even personal assistants. All on the road at Warner Communications' expense.
Giorgio's philosophy of life is that he needs people to do things for him. And he doesn't have to do anything for them. He's allowing them to be with him. So Giorgio befriended Pepe.
I wanted the success. I wanted to be there on top. I want to be succeeding. And most of all, I wanted him to succeed. I felt that his success was my success.
He became like the rock of Quinaglia. Quinaglia stepped on him all day.
Pepe, get me a pack of cigarettes. Pepe, get me a lighter.
And that was Pepe Pinto.
I remember Smitty and I were in the hotel and heard some noise in the hall at 4 in the morning. And it's Pepe carrying a television set wearing a woman's pink nightgown. So after we stopped laughing, he said, Pepe, what are you doing, man? And Pepe starts cursing. He goes, I'm busy. I'm in my room. I'm having a party. And Giorgio called me. The reception was no good on his TV, and he wanted me to bring his television up.
My television wasn't working. I wanted to watch the television. He had a good television, I had a bad one. He got to give me a television. So what's the big deal?
The '78 Cosmos rolled into the playoffs with a record of 24 wins and 6 losses. They shattered league records for points, goals, and average attendance. And in the first game of a 2-game playoff series against Minnesota, they were stunned 9-2.
When we came back to New York, we trained in the morning, and then Eddie Firmani, our coach, said, you know, after lunch, would you just wait? Steve Ross is coming to say a few words. And he opened by saying, I was on the West Coast when we played Minnesota with 750 of our delegates. And he says, our delegates didn't want to talk about our latest project. All they wanted to talk about was the fact that the Cosmos had lost 9-2. And then he said, I felt a little bit embarrassed. I don't like to feel embarrassed. And then he went on to say, if virtually saying, we are the best, we play the best, for the best, we want the best performances. If you don't want to be a part of that, see the coach and you can go now. fantastic motivational speech.
The 4-0 victory tied the series and forced a sudden death minigame.
The Cosmos have but one last chance. 5 seconds and 35 yards separate the Cosmos from elimination. The shooter, number 5, Carlos Alberto, was never before participated in a shootout.
It was just so tense. I mean, we talk about excitement and build-up. That matched anything I've been involved in the whole of my career.
Alberto, if he misses, the season's over. Lettieri out, shot, goal! The Cosmos have won it! An incredible comeback. The Cosmos advance to Portland.
The win would carry the Cosmos to a second straight NASL championship. And the league to the promised land.
ABC Sports presents the North American Soccer League.
We put a tremendous effort behind the North American Soccer League package in 1979. We had top-flight production, we had tremendous promotion, and we assigned Jim McKay.
Hello, I'm Jim McKay, and this is a moment that I, for one, will remember because we're about to do something that we've done on a number of occasions during the past 18 years at ABC Sports. We're going to begin something brand new to us.
We wanted to give it our best shot, and we really did. I think we put everything behind it.
I was the television expert. I had a very different view of our television potential. Rather, I wanted us on the anthology shows like The Wide World of Sports, with standings, players, saves, goals, player of the week, to build all the extrinsics of the sport and only put the championship game on television.
That certainly was a marvelous half of soccer, I thought.
Beautiful half indeed, wonderful play from both sides.
And I said, we will go on television and fail. Then they will blame soccer. I got outvoted.
The Cosmos would be the cornerstone of ABC's coverage. With the team's success under Canalia's hand-picked coach Fermani, and without the guidance of Clive Toye, the Cosmos' brash leading scorer began calling the shots.
When Giorgio said, give me an office, I know how to put together this team better than you, everybody said okay, because they didn't know what to do.
For all intents and purposes, Giorgio ran a shadow government on the Cosmos. He was the man behind the curtain.
In 1979, the team matched its own league record of 24 wins and 6 losses. They would again be pushed to the brink of elimination in the conference finals, this time by upstart Vancouver. Just like the year before, it would come down to a beat-the-clock shootout.
The Cosmos have one final chance to tie the shootout. Reyes' shot is in. It's in. But it's too late. The goal does not count. The 5 seconds is up. The Cosmos' reign is over.
Time ran out for the Cosmos. Little did they know, the clock was also ticking down on the league. After just 1 year, ABC had seen enough.
We did everything possible to try to make it work, and unfortunately, we had a 2.7 rating in 1979. and roughly that was about, on average, 2 million American homes.
Television was handled very poorly by ABC and certainly by the league itself.
Nobody wanted to watch it on TV. Absolutely nobody.
I can remember playing a very important game, nationally televised, at 12 o'clock in the middle of July, and then they wondered why the ratings weren't there.
Unnecessary to say it failed. Soccer failed. It didn't have to.
League attendance would peak in 1980. New York would win its third title in 4 years. But without a network television deal, the dream of soccer as a national sport was all but gone.
1980 came, and Italia started to mingle with things. And I didn't want to put up with it. I resigned.
Ultimately, Giorgio became the president of the New York Cosmos.
He wasn't loyal to us, he wasn't loyal to the game, he was loyal to himself.
Just because you are a carpenter doesn't mean that you are an architect.
Giorgio, I would say, was almost single-handedly responsible for the death of the Cosmos.
He didn't run into the ground, was running into the ground before that, you know.
I heard that Giorgio started to pay high salaries to his friends. And I heard that he run the losses of the team in the millions of dollars. High millions.
No, we're talking about million. No, I don't think so.
You don't believe that, do you? That Giorgio Canaglia ran the Cosmos? I can tell you, when I was there from 1970 to 81, Giorgio Canaglia didn't run anything, you know?
That's how we got rid of him, too.
Maybe he fired me and I didn't even know it. Wait a minute, maybe, you know? Does everybody substantiate all of these nonsensical quotes of his?
He didn't like the Cosmos. I know that because it's a very simple reason. Because Steve loved the Cosmos and he was getting involved. And he thought that was distracting Steve from other major issues of the company.
Now, this is going to shock you and maybe the whole audience. I'm closer to Steve than maybe even Giorgio. And I'm not sure about Pepe. Was that his name, Pinton? But maybe even Pepe Pinton.
Pepe Pinton would become vice president. The Cosmos won their 5th soccer bowl in 1982 as the league began to collapse.
Every time you would walk into the North American Soccer League headquarters, this guy would be there with his head in his hand and saying, does somebody want to buy Seattle? Does somebody want to buy Los Angeles?
The Cosmos, because they attracted all these great players, were the best thing that happened to the league, but in another sense, they were the worst thing that happened to the league because they scared other owners as to where the cost of operating were soaring.
They just wanted to win things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the aftermath of that was complete devastation.
Cosmos, good afternoon.
But the Cosmos' bloated budget was only part of the equation.
Now it's Pac-Man's turn to get eaten up.
Atari, once the fastest growing business in American history, came crashing down under Warner Communications, nearly crippling Ross's empire.
For investors in Warner, Zonk, a one-day paper loss of around $1 billion.
Steve Ross had doled out millions to make his dream team, but in the end, he was left with a tsunami of red ink that he couldn't ignore, especially when other parts of Warner were hemorrhaging.
When hard times hit, you have to start cutting fat.
Steve Ross would seize one final unexpected opportunity to give soccer a permanent foothold in America.
The World Cup for 1986 had been awarded to Colombia, and in 1982 the word was out that Colombia were going to withdraw and that other countries would have an opportunity to stage it.
Steve Ross, unbelievable. He was like a kid. It was very exciting to bring the World Cup in the United States. They made a plan.
He would call on all his soccer connections to win the bid.
Steve Ross was working everywhere on our behalf. You know, he was a fanatic. And when we actually went over there, Steve came with us to make the presentation.
In May 1983, FIFA, global football's governing body, awarded the '86 World Cup to Mexico.
Why they give again to Mexico, not to the United States? And then I say all the time, FIFA that time killed the best market in the world that time. And then Steve Ross, I remember like today, he said, finish.
In 1984, the team was dissolved. The league disbanded within months.
It started out as a circus, became a 3-ring circus, became a 10-ring circus, and then the tent collapsed.
In effect, mainstream professional soccer here is dead.
At the end, everybody sort of jumped off board for whatever reason or not. The league folded, we sold some of the players retired, some of the players did not play anymore. So I was left pretty much with the ship all by myself, and I went down with the ship. Because I went down with the ship, I'm still there with the ship. In other words, I am underwater with the ship.
Really? What ship? Is there a ship now that's sailing on the Cosmos name?
The Cosmos ship, what is that?
Pepe Pinton was never a big player. Pepe Pinton was, you know, he may have been a big player in the pizza parlor, but he was never a big player with the Cosmos. Trust me.
He took the name rightly so because he worked for the Cosmos. He worked for Warner's, which was good. I think he deserved it, he wanted it, and God bless him, take it.
Have you seen the Cosmos play lately? Oh, either have I. So Pepe owns, what we're saying is, let's be very clear. Pepe owns the Cosmos. The Cosmos are nothing today. So Pepe owns nothing.
Him, like many others, thought they were the Cosmos. The Cosmos belongs to everyone, the players, the executives, the managers, you know, the fans. That's what made this whole thing so beautiful.
The legacy of the Cosmos would be that they lay the seeds for every player that plays in this country today.
There was a wonderful photograph I came across a couple of years ago. When Franz arrived at JFK, we called up one of the local youth soccer clubs and said, can you get a bunch of kids out there to, with a banner to welcome Franz to New York? It was only many years later that I looked at the photograph again and realized that the kid standing in the center of the banner looking up at Franz Beckenbauer was in fact Mike Windishman, who was the captain of the US World Cup team in the '90 World Cup in Italy.
That U.S. team was the first to qualify for the World Cup finals since Joe Gaetien shocked England and the world in 1950.
I mean, there was that clear transference of excitement from the Pelé time to the young players that came after.
You look at global football now, and the Cosmos were 20 years ahead of the time.
Can you imagine a team like the Cosmos today, with the talent they had on the field, be worth $1 billion? Talk about Real Madrid, Manchester United. In those days, the Cosmos were it.
If you continue to talk about that, maybe I cry here, because so beautiful memories from that time.
The Cosmos was the team. The Cosmos was the thing that no one ever saw. People would cry when they went through the turnstile to see the Cosmos, and even the American people.
If it wasn't for the Cosmos, if it wasn't for the devotion of Steve Ross and Ahmed and Neswi Erdogan, I really don't think soccer would have be where it's at today.
The World Cup finals finally came to the United States in Giant Stadium in 1994. But Steve Ross didn't live long enough to see it.
They was ambitious to bring the best players in the world at this time and to make the game more attractive and to recognize the game. When I came at 77, you know, and you take your car and you drive to the countryside, to Long Island or to New Jersey, there was no one played the game. Now you have to drive. Everybody, you know, you see the goalposts of a football field. So that's, I think that has a name, and that's the cosmos.
Times are hard, you're afraid to pay the fee, so you find yourself somebody who can do the job for free. When you need a bit of loving, 'cause your man is out of town, that's the time you get me running, and you know I'll be around. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah. I don't wanna do your dirty work no more. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah. Light the candle, put the lock upon the door. You have sent the maid home early like 1,000 times before. Like the castle in his corner in a medieval game, I foresee terrible trouble, and I stay here just the same. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah. I don't wanna do your dirty work no more. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah.